Nancy Lanza was never able to hug her son. She said, "I love you," by buying him guns. They bonded at the shooting range. What can be said about intimacy in a rapidly changing landscape that we inhabit? Where can intimacy live safely in this culture? We have designated sanctuaries for intimacy, a time and a place for showing love. This would be sanctioned holidays. People commonly described as loners or outcasts often resent formal conventions like this. They feel forced to celebrate by the tyranny of the majority. Not surprisingly, another discovery in the Sandy Hook investigation was that Adam Lanza hated holidays. Another clue, another dot. The investigation also found a check his mother had written for a pistol she was buying Adam. In the memo section, she had noted that it was for Christmas. Of course, Adam Lanza made sure there was no Christmas that year. That's it.
So how much time did you spend looking into Adam Lanza and Sandy Hook before writing that?
Oh, are you going to ask if I got into the conspiracy side of things?
Well, yes, of course. How much?
Not as much as you probably have.
And this was my point when I was writing about it, comparing it to the Kevin movie. We need to talk about Kevin. Is that Lanza fit the culturally manufactured stereotype of the school shooter?
Yeah.
So what I was looking into was how did this get created? And what I found out very quickly was it didn't get created by reality. It didn't get created by real events. It got created by fiction. Yeah.
What do you mean by fiction?
Well, I don't mean the fiction that Sandy Hook was a fiction, which I also happen to think was at least 50% fiction, but I mean literal fiction. I mean movies like We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, you don't even have to go that far, right? Because if this person is keeping a spreadsheet on mass murders, then he's already sort of modeling him. The culture's already, in his head.
Yes. Yeah. The official stories about these killers and how many of them were, trained, dispatched killers. There's obviously a key question there, because if it's a phenomenon that's trending, that becomes socially contagious, that depends on contrived events and artificially created characters, just like in Hollywood, except with real world consequences, then it definitely fudges the whole picture, makes it very hard to talk about. That's why, because the context is everything. So right now we're talking about the general debate is that the context for these kinds of killings is society, as in society imposes and oppresses individuals with, too much, disconnects them from reality, and so eventually they go crazy like Travis the chimp and they explode. But that's based on an understanding of society that's actually kind of Marxist probably, but certainly a leftist sort of thing, that society dehumanizes and it's not blah, blah, blah. Even Voltaire and the Noble Savage, and all. There's a long tradition for how society's bad for humans, which I'm not going to disagree with. But it's still based on the idea that society is what it appears to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not talking about widespread, organized, MK Ultra linked ritual abuse of children and fragmentation of psyches. They're not even talking about the CIA and Phoenix program and, just the organized crime.
Shadow narrative.
Huh?
The shadow narrative.
Well, yes, yeah. The underlayer of society, which is intricate and organized, and Calvin's gone front and center there. And is really like the foundation of society as we know it. Like society wouldn't exist in the way it exists now, perhaps wouldn't exist at all without these controlling factions doing what they do. You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then, and then if you bring it down to the specifics, someone like Adam Lanza, well, what really happened?
Maybe too, you can talk about your own experience of,
Terror.
Yeah, right.
Calvin just commented, but in addition to the sensational massacres, there are the smaller family shootings involving 2 to 6 persons, say.
I mean, there's that family level of the Lanza thing,
Yeah.
Obviously, his mom, that's an incredibly potent story.
Lanza's mum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they say that, the majority of domestic crimes, or the highest crime rate in families, is Christmas time as well. Right. The most likely place for a murder to occur is on Christmas Day in the family.
But that's when we're supposed to be loving each other. That's the time when we get to...
Which is exactly why, right? That's a microcosm, because you're supposed to behave a certain way. Society is dictating, it creates this pressure, and you end up exploding and behaving in the very opposite way.
Thanks for the gun, Mom.
Yeah.
It's not funny, I know I shouldn't be laughing, but...
Oh, the chat says to Jason privately, oh, that's right. I haven't been able to fix that either, so that's why you're not allowed, you're not included in this. Calvin can't speak and you can't read Calvin's comments. So I'm compartmentalizing the discussion, so I have total control. So the thing about, because this came up, I was doing today for a one-to-one, and I was doing about my experience in the thrift store, and he was saying, oh, so there's something in you that's afraid of people.
Yeah.
And that's been my whole life. I've been aware of social anxiety for sure, and I'd say it's less than it's ever been, but there still is like you were saying, I don't want to get people's psychic effluence into any of my orifices. I feel quite threatened by proximity to people in general. Let's say, I won't even qualify it. Potentially I'm threatened by proximity to people. Now that's very low level, like I'm not afraid they're going to hurt me. I don't feel physical fear in the sense of an increased heart rate. I just feel discomfort. But at the other end of the scale, there is actual fear that our neighbors or our children or whatever, whoever we let get close might actually kill us. And obviously something like the Adam Lanza narrative is going to reinforce that. So why I came back to school shootings myself, independently of Travis the Chimp coming up, but I was already going there in my mind anyway, after speaking to Douglas Valentine and reading his book about the CIA as organized crime. He wrote, his first book was about the Phoenix program, and that's about, in Vietnam, the CIA, it's a short version. There was the My Lai massacre that everybody knows about, where the soldiers supposedly went crazy and just killed women and children. Well, that wasn't soldiers going crazy. Apparently that was a military operation.
Those were the orders.
Those were the orders, yeah. It was terrorist action, but it was problematic because it became a scandal, because the US Army isn't supposed to act like that. So the decision was made, okay, we need to bring in the CIA for this, so that we're doing it covertly, so the military isn't getting the rap. So the CIA got involved in more actively in Vietnam, and they created the Phoenix program, which is about training agents as assassins and torturers and kidnappers and so on, and dispatching them in North Vietnam to terrorize the population. And it was targeting not soldiers but civilians. And not only was it targeting civilians, but it was realized or decided early on that it had to be done randomly, that the only way to really spread absolute terror throughout the North Vietnamese population, so that everybody would be afraid of everybody, and they would all be trying to join the CIA, or at least inform, just to feel safe, was to make it random, so nobody knew who would be next. So random acts of terror to terrorize an entire population, to make them compliant and complicit with the the invasion, or with the agenda, the political agenda. So that got me thinking, well, what? Because Dave McGowan did this work about how these serial killers, particularly Henry Lee Lucas, were Phoenix program trained. So of course that was okay. So then the Phoenix program had a domestic application too. Then how do you terrorize your own population? Well, you can't start a war in your own country. So then serial killers, and then the natural next step would be school shootings. And there is an overlap there, because the first shooter was Charles Whitman. There's nothing to do with schools. So he was more like a serial killer, but actually he fits the template, better fits the school shootings, actually. If you look at Whitman, the case is kind of like a prototype for school shootings.
It was a college university.
College, right. So yeah, close enough, right? But he was Army, he was in the Marines, so he had all the earmark. And I think he killed his mother, didn't he? I know he wrote a letter, I should know this, but anyway. So, and the thing is that with school shootings is that the whole copycat thing, that there is a mimetic. I mean, human society is based on mimesis.
Sure.
So if you stage enough,
then the ball rolls on its own.
Eventually it gets rolling on its own, Right.
Yeah.
So you would have to have very high profile things. And so that does speak to this Columbine, Sandy Hook mirroring thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not either or either. It's like, well, Adam Lanza, I mean, everybody who in the US was impacted or imprinted by Columbine, but particularly school kids. And of course, those kids were inspired by The Matrix, supposedly, but there's probably something in it there. But I also heard that they were being systematically raped by the police officers in that town. So there's, again, the likelihood that the dark underbelly of society had a lot more to do with their behaving the way they did than just the general disgust for society that these supposed sociopathic killers have, that makes them sociopathic, that they just don't like Christmas. But anyway, so I mean, obviously it's a huge subject, but this whole question of like civilization has this unnatural effect on human beings that leads to these violent outbursts.
Jesus Christ, you talk about violent outbursts. I guess I better answer my door. Can you hold on?
Sure. Strieber and Whitman, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, because Strieber was definitely impacted or imprinted by the Whitman shooting. Enough to lie about being ostentatious. Well, with Strieber, a lie is never just a lie, is it? I think he either was there or he genuinely believed he was there. I think he was more likely there, but that he was there as an alter, and that the memory came back, and then it didn't fit with his other narratives, so then it had to be suppressed, something like that. Gibb is back. Or maybe he isn't. So are you familiar with the Sandy Hook conspiracy theories then? You know, they're very discrediting now. Like if you even talk about them, you're associated with the worst. You know, yeah, crisis, the whole thing in crisis actors is the narrative, the alternative narrative isn't just that, you know, it was a psyop and Adam Lanza was just a puppet in a big theatre thing that was real, but the whole thing was theatre and that nobody was killed and that all the grieving parents were just actors, and so that's the term crisis actors. And my sense, my guess would be is that that's bullshit, but they did hire some crisis actors to pretend as well on top of the whole thing as bait for the conspiracy tards. Shouldn't use that term, but anyway, the more gullible, to then poison the whole well. Oh, Olaf. I didn't think Olaf would be into that kind of... Yeah, I was just bringing Calvin up to speed on the whole crisis actor thing and how Sandy Hook has a... It's done this. They've done this polarization thing. Either Sandy Hook was exactly the way that the news reported it, or it was... Skip froze up now, so I don't know if you can still hear me. Calvin's still there anyway. I'll wait for Gib to come back because it's disconcerting talking to a frozen screen. He's back.
It's a whole lot of technical problems today.
It was your visitor. He came in and distracted you. So I saw this little guy in a black suit run into the room and start fiddling with things and then run out again.
Oh, really? Wow. Maybe we were getting too close to the truth?
Oh no, again. To back up. Can't see you, by the way.
Really? Gonna join these handsome devils on my TV screen. Now, am I there now?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
What was I saying before I was so rudely interrupted?
You were talking about crisis actors.
Oh, I was talking about the polarization, wasn't I? So yeah, either Sandy Hook was the official story, that's all there is, or it was all theatre and there was just crisis actors and blah blah blah, right? So this is something that I'm writing about now, is that there's a spectrum of knowledge and information and awareness around, but they try and polarize it. So wherever you are on the spectrum, you're closer to one end or the other, and because people they gravitate towards groups, they will just naturally get pulled to one end of the spectrum. So that's why you get more and more people now saying they don't believe in conspiracy theories, and then you're like, what?
Because they don't want to be in Alex Jones land?
Yeah. But they're not referring to anything. I mean, what do you mean conspiracy theory? Which one? You know, it's like they're all just one thing now.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, like I remember like in the 90s there was some poll about how many people believe that Oswald was the lone gunman or whatever, and it was very low. It was like 25%. So most people believed in a conspiracy, you know, at that time, and then the internet happened. No, it's people are. It's become something else.
Well, even I've heard even people who once did believe Oswald didn't act alone would have now.
They've changed their minds?
They've changed their position. They might not have changed their mind, but they've changed their position. Like, no, I'd rather be with that crowd over there.
Yeah, right. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, what if Strieber claimed to... I have this vague memory of him claiming... What was it? Something with Whitman?
He claimed to have been a witness to the Whitman.
Wow.
Whitman witness, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and wait, he reported it in communion, but then by the time of transformation, he was saying it never happened.
Oh.
And
well, that doesn't sound like Strieber.
But then he had a memory of being there. So it might have been in communion that he reported that he has a memory of being there, but it didn't happen because it couldn't have happened because he was somewhere else. So why did he have this memory? It must have been the screen memory.
Yeah, so foggy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. What do we do with all this?
Well, be less afraid.
What's that?
Be less afraid.
You might like the light, but they don't like the sun. When the little people come, when the little people come, scatter shiny things, cause they're not scared of guns. When the little people come, when the little people come, better hide up all your pickles, better stock up on your rum. When the little people come, when the little people come, it won't be any fun. When the little people come, 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 when the little people come. Better step on the gas, better drive away fast. When the little people come, when the little people come, got something to say, save it for election day. When the little people come, when the little people come, just whatever you do, just don't get down on your knees. When the little people come, when the little people come, when you talk to the trees, put a good word in for me. Pretty, pretty, pretty please, pretty, pretty, pretty please. When the little people come, when the little people come, when the little people